2018 was a big year for us. After a long stretch of saving money and planning, we sold most of what we owned and moved out of our East Vancouver apartment to spend most of the year traveling through South America, the US, and Canada. But to kick it all off, we headed to New Zealand. Its mountains, fjords, lush green fields, and tropical rainforests had long made it a top destination for us. Throw in the time of year, and it was an obvious choice to kick off a big year of travel. We would spend nearly a month there, exploring both the North and South Islands in what was a pretty packed itinerary. After a few quick days acclimating in Auckland, we flew into Queenstown. Lake Wakatipu, flanked by the Southern Alps, is the stunning backdrop throughout the region. The highway out to Glenorchy hugs the shoreline and made for a great day trip with incredible views. We got up well before sunrise for a 4-hour drive from Queenstown out to arguably the South Island's most famous natural attraction. perfect weather for our boat tour of Milford Sound. More memorable to us than the geography of the landscape was how the color and light shifted throughout the tour. It took most of the morning for the sun to crest over the steep cliffs and into the fjord.
Idea of the scale, which makes it about the same height as a 50-story building.
We continued our tour of Fiordland National Park, but this time we laced up our hiking boots. New Zealand's Great Walks are very popular multi-day hut-to-hut hikes. Being avid hikers from BC, we had to do one while in New Zealand. We picked the Kepler because of its large variety of forests, ridges, and alpine views, and because it's the only one that's a loop. We didn't need to arrange long shuttles to and from the trailheads like the other Great Walks.
been staring at these trees in New Zealand since we got here. Very interesting. Definitely want to know what they're called at some point. The limestone bluffs. So we're about 2/3 of the way there. It looks like gnarly forest.
With that like old man's beard.
The old man's beard, yeah. First time we've seen some of that. Starting to hear the wind too, so I think we're getting close to the top, at least the ridge line. We've reached the tree line. About to head into the sub-alpine with 45 minutes to go to the Luxmore hut. Woo! Oh yeah, this is a good place for a break. Yeah, perfect spot.
Once we reached the Alpine, we were surrounded by views of the Takitimu, Snowdon, and Earl mountain ranges and the Tianu Basin. That's when the winds picked up.
We made it to the hut, the Luxmore hut. Whoa. Very windy still.
Hey, you did that.
Look at her.
Pretty rugged out there.
Yeah, but I mean only up here. Under the trees.
Under the trees is
protected.
fine. Yeah.
I thought it would be a lot more of this tonight.
Yeah, that wasn't too
I'm not upset at all. How you doing? Oh, thank you.
With the exposed ridge and saddle portion of the trail ahead of us on day 2, everyone in the hut got a pretty stern safety briefing from the hut's host ranger that evening. The winds were going to be especially bad for the next few days, with gusts up to 120 kilometers an hour.
All right, so getting ready to head out on day 2 into the Alpine, some ridges, 6 hours or so to the Irisburg hut. Peak of Mount Luxmore. Luxmore. Just a little bit more exposure. So we're about to get to the saddle part. Oh god. Through that crazy wind tunnel, and now it's actually quite calm, but we're all now in this cloud that was forced over that side of the ridge. But a nice break from the wind. Some super cool mosses. Super crazy valley behind us. Through the alpine stuff, and now we're reaching the tree line again, and these super awesome waterfalls that are streaming up the mountainside. forest is called?
It's called the Irisburn Valley. Oh wow, cool. Come around the corner, it's cool. It's so magical.
This is amazing.
After being just bombarded by high winds crossing the saddles, it came as a huge relief to finally start to descend into the forest.
Wow. Finally, after 6 hours or so, we've reached the Luxmore Hut. Very welcome sight. We are very wet and very ready for some hot soup and some tea. Our third day, still raining, probably gonna rain most of the day, but we just have one long haul back to the parking lot. So just going through some pretty sweet forest for now. Anyway, hopefully we get some clearing at some point.
Most hikers stay a third night at the Motoroa hut to keep each day's distance reasonable. But based on our schedule, we decided to skip the last hut and do one very long day, hiking all 32 kilometers back to the control gates that same day.
It definitely does look like it's got somebody just rolled a moss scarf over that tree.
Exactly.
It's cool. Yep, great. There's green, and then there's New Zealand. Look at the crazy mushrooms. Some there. One there. There's another one right here. Nice.
thoughts of a hot shower, plush motel bed, and an indulgent dinner waiting at the end of a long day kept us going, even as our bodies were starting to break down from 3 days of constant rain and wind.
Made this tea back at the Motoroa hut, and now we get to drink a nice afternoon tea on the very end of our walk. So far we've gone 23.5 kilometers. We've got about 7 more to go.
Woo! Yeah, the tea's been amazing.
We just passed a new record, 40,000 steps in one day. 27.6 kilometers. And still a few more to go.
Ah, there are the control gates. Finally. Woo! We made it. There and back again. There we go.
Yay!
Woohoo! There it is.
48,410, and then 33.3 kilometers. That's 2,500 calories.
Leaving Tanao, we had a long 5-hour drive to the center of the South Island. We had a reservation to stay in a yurt on a farm near Twizel and Lake Tekapo, right on the doorstep of Aoraki Mount Cook National Park. Weather remained unseasonably cold and rainy for March.
So this is where I believe they shot Pelennor Fields.
You see the sheep in the background too.
100% pure New Zealand. There were mountains earlier though.
All of our hosts in New Zealand were wonderfully social and welcoming. With the temperatures that night dipping into the low single digits, our farmstead hosts welcomed us inside their cabin for a fireside drink and gave us some hot water bottles to put in our bed that night. Thank goodness for that. Next up was Aoraki Mount Cook National Park. Even with most of the peaks covered in cloud, the Hooker Valley Track had plenty to see. The highlight at the end of the track being an expansive glacial lagoon, which we hoped had some icebergs.
Whoa, there are floating icebergs.
After the national park, we drove to Christchurch, which is about as old and European as it gets in New Zealand. But the toll of the 2010 and 2011 earthquakes is still very visible. Many sections of the city still being rebuilt. Quake City, a museum dedicated to the history of the quakes in New Zealand, is fascinating and was well worth the visit. Next, it was off to New Zealand's main wine country, Marlborough. Everything was so wonderfully casual here, and reminded us a lot of the unpretentious wine regions back in Canada. And because New Zealand, sheep play a key role in the winemaking process.
Marlborough is great. Our first winery, Gaylen's is a big giant winery with really adorable sheep and complimentary tastings and a really nice guy at the tasting bar who was also from BC. And we learned a lot about Marlborough wine and got to try a lot of it for free. Our second great walk was actually more like a great paddle. While one of those famous tracks does wind through the forests of Abel Tasman National Park, we thought we'd take a more unique route out to the hut.
Getting ready to leave and cast off next day. It's cloudy, not as nice as yesterday.
From Abel Tasman, we had a long drive down Highway 6, covering the west coast over the next few days, stopping at some pretty amazing spots. Our last big hike on the South Island took us to Mount Aspiring National Park. This was not an easy trailhead to access that day in our small rental car. Localized flooding on a rough, pothole-filled road made for a more stressful morning than we had anticipated. This was very much a working farm area. But it's not just sheep. New Zealand is the only place we've ever been where deer are domesticated. Apparently this is due to the lack of big predators, which plays a key role in a lot of things in New Zealand.
to have this be your favorite spot.
Mm-hmm.
Just like such a big ball.
The end point of this hike, with waterfalls cascading down from the Rob Roy Glacier on the shoulders of Mount Aspiring, was as dramatic as anything we'd seen over the last few weeks. It was a perfect way to end our time on the South Island.
Viewers coming to you live from Will's phone. He really liked making videos, so here I am making a video. Last day on the South Island, very sad. The car went through some things on the way to Mount Aspiring National Park, and now we're back and on the beach, and I don't want to make this video anymore. Cut!
New Zealand has been a no drone zone, which is one of our favorite things about this country, but and this is happening as these warplanes are practicing overhead, so good job, genius. Watching these military planes hover over the lake as they practice their drills ahead of Wings Over Wanaka this weekend. Everybody from the North Island and South Island will be descending on this place this weekend to watch all these planes do some crazy things. So yeah, we're just getting out of here as it's about to get busy. But we're heading into the North Island, back to Auckland, and then to Rotorua. Oh, there's one flying behind me now. Where we start the North Island part of our journey.
Are you trying to take a video of me? Tell me when it. Tell me
It's
action.
ready. It's action.
Cut.